With George Washington's birthday and President's Day right around the corner, it's a great time to get a little history lesson on the nation's first president. Joining us today to help us restore our enthusiasm in American history are David Bruce Smith, the founder of the Grateful American Foundation, and Curt Viebranz, the president of George Washington's Mount Vernon. Welcome, gentlemen. I love talking about history, and especially George Washington, our hometown guy, right? So let's start with you, David. What do you want us to know about George Washington?
Well, I think, in a way, history has done a disservice to George Washington because he was a very human man, actually, but he is perceived by the public, I think, as a statue, where you think of him as the head of a quarter or a dollar bill. But actually, one of the things that Mount Vernon is doing to humanize him, I think, is to bring Martha Washington into the picture, because I think that even though he could have propelled to the White House without her, she was a great wife, a great partner, like Abigail Adams and Dolly Madison were. And I think promoting a they, meaning a couple, is more interesting than promoting a him.
Okay. Curt, as president of Mount Vernon, what is your favorite thing about George Washington? What's his biggest accomplishment?
Well, he was the head of the Army. He was then presided over the Constitutional Convention, and he was twice unanimously elected President of the United States. And so Joe Ellis calls him the foundingest father. Every time there was a job to do, he was the guy they went to. But as David's saying, he's a real human being and a real human figure. He was a great dancer. He was one of the most accomplished riders in the state, horsemen in the state of Virginia. So there are great stories about him beyond just the man on the dollar bill.
We think of, I think, Franklin as being sort of this Renaissance man. Was really George Washington the real Renaissance man?
He was self-educated. It bothered him all his life. He was frequently derided for it by the other founding fathers, and yet he was a very highly educated person, and he read continuously. And he was an entrepreneur, so he was always reading about ways to make Mount Vernon more profitable and more productive.
He was also the only founding father, I believe, who did not have a college education. So he compensated, or maybe overcompensated, for that.
Overcompensated, but actually achieved as well. Now, David, you always bring us these great fun facts. That's one of them right there. But you also really love the first wives and the first ladies, and you were talking about Martha and how important she is. When you tell these stories on the Grateful American Foundation website with your podcasts and all these tools that you have, do you really make these women come alive as well, or is it about the founding fathers primarily?
Those stories come alive if the first lady is
warrants it,
is a partner.
Okay.
So Martha, Abigail Adams, Dolly Madison, Mary Todd Lincoln, Nancy Reagan. Those are all.
I was going to say, are any of the current first wives included in that?
Eleanor Roosevelt. Those are women who propelled their husbands, I think, to the White House.
So give me your fun fact about George Washington. You've given us so many already, but so what's your sort of like, wow, your big surprise one?
Okay, so in the White House today, there are more employees than there were in the government during Washington's time.
Wow. That is a good one. I love these wow things that you bring us. It's so great. Curt, during this special celebration of President's Weekend and George Washington's birthday, what does Mount Vernon have going on?
We will have this weekend character and actors there telling Washington's story. The general himself will be there with Mrs. Washington. We're a private foundation. We rely on admission. So the only day of the year that it's open free will be President's Day next Monday. And then the big thing we do it twice a year, July 4th, and we'll do it on Sunday the 22nd. His actual birthday is a swearing in of new American citizens, which is really it's a great
That's
event.
really special.
Yeah.
Now, this is sort of like asking about Santa Claus in a way, but is there one person who plays George Washington, or do you have a whole cast of characters?
We have only one person.
You have one George Washington, and so we'll get to see him this weekend.
A 6'3", got the exact bearing,
So
and
he
he's
looks
terrific.
like him.
He does.
He really
Although we
does.
think now about bringing back a young George Washington
Oh, that'd be
to
fun.
really tell people that he was a human being and he made mistakes, and
Yeah.
you know, he had
it's
a
not all
problem.
about the cherry tree, which isn't a true story anyway.
Correct, exactly.
Excellent. Thank you so much for enlightening us about our founding father and for talking about the firsts and making it so interesting for us.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
More Let's Talk Live's coming up. Stick with us right here.